You awaken to one day have many questions. Yet time marches on. You awaken to one day have many questions. Yet time marches on. Humanity has been on an endless quest.
Yes.
Circling the globe in search of answers.
Hold on, y'all. I'm having a little bit of time.
Gaining knowledge from cultures long since vanished from the earth. And from within the pages of the great books they left behind, time still proceeds. Many great and mysterious monuments and ruins from civilizations have yet to be fully understood by us. Time still inches forward. We yearn to discover the true meanings that our ancestors knew when they walked this planet. But many of the answers have been forever lost to time. Today, we take another step in our journey to discover the truth and reveal all of life's unsolved history.
Ooh, man. Yes, indeed, family. Yes, indeed. We are here. Before we get into it, all right, let's do some, let's take a pause for the cause. We're about to really get into it. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a closed segment, okay? So y'all know this is for your viewing, enjoyment only. You're not gonna be able to come up, because we got stuff to do. So we about to kill it, and then we about to be out. Y'all know how we do. So let me give a shout out real quick to the homie, Big Rick Slaps. Thank you for tuning in, Big Rick Slaps. Let's get it, yes sir. Also shout out to my homie Rush. Rush, what's good? What's going on? Also, salute to M3. M3 was good. Rush also said, I know this episode is going to be fire. It damn sure is. You know what I mean? Also, salute to the homie who made the Unsolved History intro. My man, I love the new avatar, homie, Arshawn. You know what I mean? Listen, make sure y'all should like and subscribe to Arshawn and Critically Drinking. Okay? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Definitely show him some love. Do I need to turn the music volume down or my volume down? Let me know. Let me know, M3. You know what I'm saying? Also, definitely like subscribe to Knowledge and Relationships, okay? And like and subscribe to the Labuto Network, all right? That's a network that is a part of my man Rush, okay? He's doing some great stuff. Just did an interview, I believe, with Jordan Peterson. You know what I mean? So yeah, show that brother some love. So, Miss O'Shun.
Yeah.
This is Unsolved History, a Black File segment. Music I meant, thank you, brother. You know what I'm saying? And you on 3, thank you. So let's get into it, man. This is based on a few things. We're gonna get into a little bit of the X-Files episode 2. All right, and we also got a little something else we cooked up for y'all. But what's going on? Talk to us, Miss O'Shun. What's good?
Okay, so I watched. Okay, so like you said, we have something for later on, and honestly, I kind of feel like what's coming later on in the segment here is a precursor to Black History Month. Like, I know you're going to be doing some specials during the month of February, but I really do feel that this is like it's gonna open some eyes. I'll say that I have confidence in my contentions because I try not to deal in theory. Wow. Because we've heard enough theories. I think we've been theoried out for the last 100 years, and I think we've had enough. So I'm all about facts, and I go where evidence leads me. And I think what's interesting about at least new age thinkers is that we're willing to put the puzzle together as is and not stifle our understanding based on what we think it should be. So nowadays I see more people exploring other ideas that can give us deeper insight to some of the most in-depth enigmas of this age, which is, what is the universe and where do we come from? Those are the two questions of the universe. More so than, the speed of light, more so than dark matter. These things are, scientific feats that we are exploring, like, for instance, the only thing faster than the speed of light is the speed of thought. Like, we're making strides in these studies. However, the study of our origin is still at square one. And I feel we have to push this forward. Now, I'm not sure if pushing it forward is not going to get us knocked, but I'm going to try. I'm gonna try. But I think so that we can, because we always try to get into the X-Files episodes. Now I did watch first. I did watch episode 2. However, I'm already further along, so they're kind of like blurring together. It's weird.
Just meshing together in your mind. Okay, I got you.
Yes. So I do know it was about soldiers, but I'm unclear on which episode about soldiers, because there was several. I mean,
there's several.
So you can remind me about that.
Well, see, this is the one with the soldier. He actually, when they find him, he needs medical attention because he has all these rashes on his body, and of course, on top of that, he goes missing after a while. Like, he just goes MIA, and his wife contacts, all the governing bodies, the FBI, which is, the military, which is what he worked for, and everything else, and they're not able to find him. And then one day he just mysteriously shows up, and she's like, "This is not my husband." You know what I'm saying? So, and in that town, people have seen sightings of unidentified flying objects. And as Mulder and Scully are digging deeper into it, they get pulled over by the Men in Black. Y'all know who that is. And they take all their stuff. They even punch Mulder in the stomach real quick. Bow, hit him real quick. Now, I mean, don't be asking no questions. Get in your car, roll out, get up out of here. And Mulder being Mulder, he doesn't listen. He goes back to the hotel because they follow him, and then he goes off and is in a search of the truth. You know what I'm saying? So, but also in the dynamic you see with Mulder and Scully, at this point they don't really trust each other like that. Especially Scully, she's still kind of questioning a lot of what Mulder does, his tactics, because Mulder is spontaneous. He doesn't, he communicates, but then he just runs off and just does things. So he's very just like proactive and reactive to things just really quickly. But also in that, remember from the first episode, she is doing research on him and on the X-Files. So she's coming as a field reporter. So she's not really part of the team. She's kind of more like a spy at this point, and that's what she's acting like. So yeah, so let's take another pause for the cause real quick. Gotta give a shout out to Mr. C said, "What's going on, family? What's going on? What's going on? Peace and salute." Also, Truth, you know what I'm saying? What's good? What's good? What's good? You know what I'm saying? I see you, bro. I see you. Also, Harris Trial Media Group. You know what I mean? So we got the whole fam. We got Mr. He said and Mr. She said in the group. What's good? What's good? You know what I mean? We chilling. So yeah, so you see the dynamic of them too, how they don't really trust each other. But you also see in the beginning of episode 2 where there's somebody who warns Mulder. There's an older gentleman who works for the government. He warns Mulder, "Hey man, leave this case alone. It's gonna get too hot for you in the kitchen." But Mulder, he ain't really listening. You know what I'm saying? He like, I'm gonna just do what I'm gonna do. And so now, now they get into some hot shit. So, which is supposed to happen. Like I said, the Men in Black already pulled up on him. This is only episode 2. They pulled up on him, man. They got physical. You know what I'm saying? They got real. So also salute to Daryl Long. I see you, bro. What's good? So what do you think about that, Lola? Do you think that at this point, what are you thinking about their dynamic, the Men in Black pulling up, them already seeing unidentified objects, them getting the warnings? You know what I mean? Because at this point, if it was me, I would have said, you know what? Maybe it ain't really worth it. You know what I'm saying? If people don't know the truth, it's cool. I know it. I'm good. Let me just do my FBI work. So what do you think about it?
Okay, so oh, wait, I hear echo. Okay. I think that having, as far as the show is concerned, I think that casting that episode in a real scenario versus a theoretical one of just him being an investigator and him finding out different things was genius on the producer's part, because in reality, when you do start researching government files, you already know that your computer will be pinged. You already know, like if you go to the library and ask for certain books, your ID is recorded that you asked for certain books. Sometimes you have to, show more than that to get access to certain other books. So we do know that the government watches closely people who investigate it and these phenomena. The only way you can kind of sort of fly under the radar is if you are doing your first-hand field work, which is what he was doing in the show. But even then, he can't really do that because he works for the government. Now, keep in mind, even from the first episode, we understand that he was put on that task so that the government can keep tabs on what's happening in the street. Basically, allow him to try to investigate so that they can understand how they're being investigated, so that they can better, combat people investigating them. It seems like he himself is a project for the government to spy on, to just basically run a field operation on, well, how do we shut people down that investigate us? And they use their own for that, which goes to the further point inside of the episode of having soldiers being affected by government dealings. And people are saying, well, these are your own people. How are you doing this? And how is this happening to your own people? But people fail to realize that the government is not a person. The government is, in a sense, an entity that is not alive. And it's based on like just it's a machine. So, and machines don't have minds. So it's like that machine works a certain way. And like, if the guy in the show tells Mulder, okay, don't investigate this case, it's because he understands the gravity of investigating the government. And, that is something that, I think we all know intuitively is a consequence of looking into too many things. I mean, like, hell, if you look into state like registries for cases involving police officers, right? You can be, and I mean, these are police, like state and city police. So I already know what the level of controversy is on the federal level. So that's the one I appreciate about the episode, that it didn't make his investigation like, the typical Disney investigation where he investigates and gets a little bit of pushback and then finally comes out on the end with all of the answers. It's like, I don't even think he ever got any answers from what I remember from that time period watching these episodes when they first aired. But now that I'm going through them again, I do realize that he comes to a place where he has to just know within himself what the truth is based on what's there, because there's a part of him that already knows. And the same thing with Scully. Scully knows, but Scully she has a job to do. And even if she did, she has a job to do, unless she wants to be the target. She knows what she has to do. So that's where I look at it for right now.
Well, you know what? Can you hear me? Is my echo going as well? Okay. Also, another pause for the cause. Salute to JP. JP, good to see you. Peace to you, sister. You know what I mean? I know the spirit as well, and know you're doing well. What's going on? All right, now listen. I've had firsthand experience of this, because theoretically, like you said, when you're trying to do research and you're doing research on things that are controversial, that are things that you may not should be reading about or investigating, you will be stopped, or things will happen that will kind of block your path. For instance, I was trying to get this book, and it took me several months to get this book, right? And I know why. It was the ISIS papers by Dr. Francis Cress Welding, okay? It took me so long to get this book. I mean, I was searching for this book for like dumb long. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was looking on Amazon, everything, and they would not let me get this book. I could not get it. I couldn't buy it on my Amazon Kindle. I could not get this book anywhere. They would not let me have this book. And then finally, when I was able to buy the book, I damn near paid like $30, $40 for this book. Okay?
Right.
All right? And that's really the price for you wanting to know the truth and for you wanting to know facts. They're gonna make you pay for it. You know what I mean? Whether out of your pocket or in other means and other forms. Okay? So you gotta be ready when you're trying to really find the truth. Another pause for the cause. I see you, Alonzo Hall. Salute to you, brother. Salute. You know what I mean? So that's a real thing. But we also see in the first episode too, that Mulder's sister was abducted. You know what I mean? So we have an understanding why he's kind of so passionate and sometimes even belligerent in his quest for the truth. You know what I mean? He just kind of just loses it. You know what I mean? If he can't find the truth, Salute to Lady E. You know what I mean? And Lady E, don't be coming up in here saying hi to just one person, all right? I'm going to come and get you if you want to say hi to one person. I'll mess with you. You know what I mean? Johnson Different was good. Johnson Different said, the books of knowledge are always expensive or difficult to locate. Indeed. Y'all make sure y'all follow Johnson Different as well. Follow everybody to Alonzo Hall, JP, everybody, man. Show everybody some love. You know what I mean? So yeah, that truth is hard to find. You know what I mean? For real. And they're gonna make you pay for it in one way or the other. But Mulder is on a quest, and I think that fire in him stems from his childhood. You know what I mean? Stems from his experiences in his childhood and him just being blocked. And it's kind of funny how they even allow him into the government, even knowing everything that he's been through, even knowing the knowledge that he's already had, they allow him in. So it's kind of like they want to, in a sense, like you said, keep him kind of as an experiment himself, right? You know what I mean? Because as he's recovering this knowledge, they kind of want to filter what he can do and what he can't. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Right. But to the point of his childhood, I'll say this, and we all have had our experiences or near experiences for that matter. If one of our children had came up missing, and the reason why they came up missing is because we were in our house one day and all of our windows started glowing white, and then we seen the child get sucked out of a window up into the literal air, and there was no one to call. There was no human beings around, and we know what the hell happened, but the child is now missing for real. It would drive you differently than if you heard about something or even read about something in a book. Like that would drive you differently. And in his case, he was a child, so he had a first row seat at something that most children will never have to encounter, and thus it affected him in that way. Now, I've had my own experiences. That is the reason why I do what I do on this show and in my own research on my other channel. But it didn't affect me in the way like I experienced the loss of a family member as a result of that. No, I didn't. I just experienced something that my eyes couldn't explain while I was looking at it. And I know exactly what I was looking at. And I experienced it for minutes on end. And like, it wasn't like, I was like, it was in broad daylight. And so, that right there has inspired me to know that, listen, what I'm talking about and where I'm going, there's a place intended for me, right? But in his case, he lost his sister. And there's other accounts of people that lost their children the same way. There's a movie that I think, I forgot what it's called, but there's a movie based on the true story of a woman that said that her children, or at least one of her children, was abducted in this same way from her house. And so, is there a police to call when that happens? No. It's like
not at all.
That's what I'm saying. And I don't know if you guys would know how that feels for something to happen to your child and there's no one to call, but everybody's standing there. Like, I understand from, a visual standpoint, why that drive would be almost, I want to say fanatic. Yeah. In his case. But I don't see it as him being fanatic in terms of crazy. I feel like him being fanatic as in he's not going to let what happened to his sister die out without uncovering the truth about it, and obviously other people too. But yeah, that's how I take that.
Man, and you know what? Let me get into M3's comments, and I'm gonna build. I see both the comments. M3. He says knowledge does come with a price, which is why we must find creative ways to obtain it without notice. Facts. He also says, during the 19th century, Black slaves educated themselves by secretly gathering in the evenings to learn how to read and write. This practice, known as midnight school, began around 1831. He ain't right that. That was Mrs. M3. You don't be talking like that, M3. Get up out of here. I'm messing with you, brother. You know I love you, man. Today is no difference. But yeah, these things are true. These things are very, very true. You know what I'm saying? They will penalize you, and they will definitely make sure that you suffer if you dig too deep down a rabbit hole. Okay, they will make an example out of you very quickly and very swiftly. So when you're investigating the truth, you got to be willing to go all out for it. You know what I mean? If it really means something to you. But also, I just want to say we really live in this Black Files. You know what I'm saying? You see how Lola had an experience. I had my experience with the book and all that. Know what I mean? M3 had his experience, you know what I'm saying? We live in this Black File thing, for real. But yes, that is just the gist of the X-Files right now. Because remember, we just only covered the first 2 episodes. You know what I mean? This is what's kind of going on. Let's get into the next thing, Lola. And then hold on. M3 says, LOL, I know, I just learned about midnight schools on the web. Okay, brother, I see you doing your research. Let's go. So yeah, Lola, get into your next talking point. We here.
Okay, so like I said to you guys, this is a somewhat of an introduction to Black History Month. Now, what I want to say is this: it was something my father told me a long time ago. It was something he did too, like when I was maybe 7 years old, and I still remember it to this day. He had told me that there's nothing new under the sun, and everything you see has happened before. And then he says, when somebody tries to keep something away from you, where they're gonna hide it is where you can't see it. And he was like, "Can you see my finger?" And I was like, "Yes." He was like, "Can you see my finger still?" I was like, "Yes." And then he took his finger all the way up to my nose and said, "Do you see my finger?" And I was like, "No." He was like, "That's where all of the information you'll need to know will be forever." And I never forgot that, you know. And the thing is this, right? What we're taught about Black history, even when I say Black history, understand people, this is a general word I'm using because we really don't have a word for what we're talking about. So I'm going to use the word Black, meaning, you know, Africanoid, phenotypical type Black, okay? We're always taught that essentially we emerged out of the bush, right? And we met civilization when slavery happened, when Europeans came to the Dark Continent and decided to basically run havoc.
Hold on, Lola. Pause for the cause real quick. Give a shout out to Kings and Dreams because we about to go real deep into this, and I know you're about to do it, and we about to go there. So it's a salute to yo. The game is on. I'm here to support. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your support. Now, I mean, I know that game is going down. I heard the score, but yeah, thank you for coming through the support, man. Appreciate you.
So, yeah, we're taught that is the general scheme of how our history began. Now, there is some insight to, for instance, Mansa Musa, in terms of him being a Black man, but we really don't know about Mansa Musa. Like, we don't know much about him. And then we're told, well, there were Black people that emerged in some of the tribes in East Africa in the land of Kemet, right? And that turned into what we know as, you know, ancient Egypt today. Now, but then that got whitewashed down to the Ptolemy family, right? Which is a white family. But this is what we're taught about Black history. But I started doing research, and I started realizing that after my research, the question I was left with was, well, where do white people come from? And the reason why I was left with the question of where do white people come from is because on every continent, in every country, I started realizing in my research that the original inhabitants, meaning as far back as the soil can show you, they were anatomically modern humans, but they were Negroid in nature. Every continent, Europe, Africa, Asia, the Americas, Australia, okay, like all the way up in the Inuit tribes, all the way up north, like everywhere you look, the original inhabitants are Black. So my question was, and we're talking about going all the way back 200,000 years. Okay, this is almost 200,000 years before the last ice age. Okay. They were blackety black. So my question is, well,
not blackety black.
Blackety black, real black. Like, you know, my question became, well, if the world started off Black, well, where do white people come from? And in my research, right, because here's the thing, I found out that this theory about them coming from the Caucasus Mountains and crawling out of caves, right? I'm not sure if that is their true history, because it just doesn't align with the genetics. It doesn't align with the Earth history in terms of the geology of how the Earth moves. It just doesn't make sense. And honestly, I can't tell you where they come from, but I can tell you that wherever they come from, it's an obscure place that we still don't know. And they're still studying their genetic genome to find out. But as it pertains to Black people, right, in every form of it, I came to a conclusion that Black people on this planet, as much as we would like to kind of put ourselves into one race, we're not one race. we're not one race, and I don't mean as in we're mixed with other races. I mean, Black people are not from the same lineages, and they did not evolve, let alone on this planet. And I'm saying that Black people didn't evolve on this planet. Period. Okay. So what I want to do tonight is just kind of talk somewhat about the history of Black people beyond Africa, because my contention is that Black people didn't evolve in Africa and then move outside of Africa to the rest of the world. My contention is Black people came to Africa, and they came to Africa as suddenly as they popped up on this planet. They didn't evolve in Africa and come out. They came to Africa. And I have some evidence to this effect. So if people want to, send, messages and kind of like, kind of debate me some about that, I'm open to that. But I'm gonna get into that a little bit, and just kind of give my thoughts. And the reason why I brought up slavery is because, like my father said, you have to look for when this happened before. And my question is, well, when did slavery happen involving Black people before this? Like, in terms of chattel slavery, when did this happen before? And when I say happen before, I mean happen before what we know as history. So I'm talking in terms of prehistory. When did this happen? And what I came to realize is that this has happened before, and it was worse. But we were the ones that were the slavers. Okay. So where you see, right, let's say your European people who were slavers in the Americas, understand that came from a longer history in the remote past, and they were not the slavers in the past. We were. We were more than just a little bit of people. Let's just say that.
So wait. Are you theoretically saying that we were the original slave owners?
Yes.
That we own them? Wow.
Yeah.
And maybe and based on that, maybe that's why there's so much hatred between us.
Right. And keep in mind, right? Even when I was a child, I used to ponder over, like, if white people just wanted to use Black people as slaves, right? That wouldn't in and of itself garner a deep-seated, almost genetic hatred. Servitude is servitude. Indentured servitude is indentured servitude. Slavery has been going on for a long time outside of the Americas. So why this hate for a certain type of Black people? Like, why the hate? Where is that coming from? It seems like it's coming from nowhere. But in reality, my contention is memories are stored in our DNA. All of your memories are in your DNA. So this is why your body creates new cells every 7 years, and every 7 years you have a whole new body, but you look the same. Because memory is stored in your DNA, and that's where I feel this hatred, this pure hatred, is coming from. And to a degree, I'm saying it's kind of deserved based on what I came to understand. But I mean, I'll get into it.
But yeah, where are you finding your research from, and how did you come up with this theory that's so controversial yet profound? Like, where are you coming up with this, family? Like, you gotta let me know. You gotta build on this.
Okay, so I use other people's research for, let's say, my online research, right? But for research that is more, let's say, like you was alluding to earlier, hidden, right? I have to actually go to places like the library. I have to actually talk to people that knew about things that, are no more now. I've spoken to certain people from the Vatican, and I mean, these were conversations I've had in my life, like, for the past couple years. And I've actually done some research myself in terms of transliterating, language and ancient Sumerian text or cuneiform text. Now, I am not an expert at cuneiform text, but I can move through it enough to know what they're talking about. And the thing is, it's the first written language, so it's the purest language that we know of, meaning in terms of not its phonetic value, but its meaning, right? So we can draw a lot from their writing system, from the most ancient writing that we have on record. Now, even if that's not the most ancient writing, it's still a pure form of it. So it's enough for us to draw a lot of conclusions from. And when you juxtaposition that to let's say the ancient stories from each and every culture, I don't mean just Black culture, I mean Asian culture, like Oriental culture, to Native American culture, to the cultures all the way down in Australia and everywhere in between. When you put them all together, including the Bible and the Quran, for all you Muslims out there, when you line it up and you just look at it for what it is, not what you believe, but for what it is, the story is real clear, but it's going to take a lot of courage for you to accept exactly what it's telling you. Like,
so let me ask this question. What about African religion? Does African religion take any precedence in this conversation as well? Let me get into the comment real quick by Brother Rush. He says the Africans sold us to the Europeans phonetically. We look like the Hamites, but culturally we mad different. Yes, it wasn't Black people invented slavery. That's why Africans call us Akatas. Okay.
Now I'll say
it means
this,
a wildcat without a home. Okay, bro. Okay, I see you.
Well, I'll say this, right? My son's grandparents, on his father's side, they're West African. They're continental West African. And when I first met them, they used to call me Bushmani, right? And Bushmani, wild person. And the reason why they call me wild person.
We know why they call you wild person. We know.
No.
You gotta get into it.
They called everybody wild people, but the reason why they do that is because they were colonized and called and told what African Americans were. So they equated that to the people of, if any of you guys have seen the movie or the series House of Dragons or Game of Thrones, talking about the forest people, the people whose DNA are the oldest, right? We call them the wild people, right? That's what they called me. Now, it was in error, I'll be honest with you, because for the reasons they called me that's in error. But they were clear about that after getting to know me and living in the US for a while. But the truth of the matter is, and Rush, I mean, I'm not denying that happened in history. That's why I said there was a time when we were told and we were sold, right? But history tonight goes back more than 200,000 years ago. That selling happened.
And Brother Rush, I'm gonna only allow you to come up because you got something to add. You know, rather than that, nobody else can come up. But because you have something to add, brother, I'm gonna let you come up, and you do build with us on a very, very, very good, vibe. We like your vibe here, so we're gonna allow you to come up. Everybody else, I just gotta tune in. You know what I mean? No hate. We love y'all. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Brother Rush is a little different. He vibes with us on a good level. You know what I mean? So if you come up, bro, you come up. I already sent the invite to your IG. Come up if you can. Go ahead, Lola. My bad.
Okay, so
did she pause for the cause? She definitely paused for the cause. Oh, there she go.
Okay. Okay, so what I want to say, just to start off, because that was just a precursor. What I want to say is this. The current model of human migration, which is obviously the part of how we're figuring out where we all come from, right? The current model is based on theory, like several theories, but all of it is theory. And honestly, most scientists will tell you that the current migration model out of Africa theory doesn't make any sense. It doesn't match up too much. It's just a bunch of theory, but every theory has 16,000 holes in it, because what else could it be? Because we don't have any answers to explain why the current model basically is a fuck show. Meaning, what they have currently today is Africans came out of Africa, right? And they went into the Middle East. And after they went into the Middle East, then they went into what's called present-day Europe. And then they went, and I'm talking about the European countries and Russia. And then they went to the Orient, towards, East Asia. And then they went down into like Indonesia, and then somehow crossed over an ocean in a time when there were no way to get to isolated countries and settled.
Are you talking about the Ice Age, or are you talking about Pangea? Which one?
No, I'm talking about beyond the Ice Age, but roughly, let's say 50,000 years ago. This is where their model starts from.
So are we talking about Pangea? Are we talking about Pangea theoretically?
Just say theoretically, just maybe, yeah, when the world looked a little different, but we still had a continent, right? This is their current model. Now, the reason why their current model doesn't work, right,
Lady Phoenix,
is because, well, first of all, it's a theory that Africans came out of Africa versus Africans were already in the places that I've just named. That it's just a theory. There's no genetic evidence to show that Africans left Africa and went all these different places and turned it into all these different people. It just doesn't make any sense. And like I said earlier, when you look at the original inhabitants of each continent, they were black. So you cannot theoretically say, well, they came from this place versus that place. Now, I know what some people will say, which is, well, we found the oldest bones in Africa, right? But I would caution people to say that because, you know, Europeans come and say dumb stuff like that. What Europeans found in Africa is not human. It's just not. It's an animal. It's not human. Anatomical humans is not what they found in Africa and quote unquote walked out of Africa. That's not what that is. And I'm not saying they didn't find those bones of those apes that they found. Sure, but we have apes on this planet, and we know that that's a real thing. It doesn't mean that that is us, and now we as apes evolved and went places and did shit in under 50,000 years. Like, this is stupid. It takes millions of years for genetics to move and evolve. Millions. We're talking about anywhere under 200,000, which is that in time. So, you know, this is why the current model doesn't work, because it's based on time. Genetically, we can see what happened where, and it's only a couple hundred years relative that things started happening. Yet you're talking about evolution. It just doesn't work. Now, what I want to do is this, right? I want to get into the Akkadian language because I found some interesting things there that I just wanted to share with you guys. Now, I did write it down so that I wouldn't like go off and miss like points, but I wanted to read this for right now.
But hold on, one second, because I want to hear Rush, because remember we just gave him a slice of the pie. We gave him a slice of the pie, right? Rush, what's good, baby? You know what I mean? Anything you want to build on before we give you the rest of this pie, man?
Oh, yo, what up? Salute to you, best in the world, man. Thanks for having me over here. What up,
Salute, brother.
What's up with you? What up? Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, definitely black people have invented slavery. You know what I mean? This is just one of the main things that popped off back in the day. In Israel, in the Northern Kingdom, there was the indigenous people that lived in that land, and the southern region of the kingdom are the the more melanated type people, right? So at that time, the Assyrians came in, right? You know, devoured and conquered the land, you know what I mean? Raped and pillaged and all that. So a lot of people had to flee. You know what I mean? Some flee to the west part of Africa, some flee to Italy, some flee to Greece. I mean, they had to get the dipping because, you know what I mean? The Assyrians was putting work. Now, when these melanated people arrived in West Africa, right? I mean, the Africans from that native land, they would imprison them. I mean, because even though phenotypically we would look alike like these things, like we would look alike like as these Africans, but culturally we're totally different. I mean, different language, different culture. Like, I mean, we worship different gods, totally different. I mean, and because they imprisoned us when the Europeans came through, they was like, "Yo, sell these sell these cats to us so we could bring them to the new land and make some bread off these cats." And they worked it out, and that's what popped off. Now these individuals that I'm talking about are our ancestors. Which quote the Israelites. You know what I mean? The lost tribe of Israel.
Whew. Man.
What I'll say to that is this, right? History has taken a lot of turns and bumps over the last 10,000 years. But and that is true. Like as far as like the migration of people per war, right? As far as like moving around and how that happened. However, that is but one of many thousands of instances of slavery in Black history, and that happened within the last 5,000 years. Like what I'm saying is that right there is just a repeat of what has happened.
I also want to say, right, you said there's no evidence that Africans left Africa and went to different lands, right? Well, when you look at Mexico, right, this is called this Olmec statue, which has the image of Black people, the nose, the eyes, and all that. You can tell that it's a melanated individual that they had a statue of in Mexico. You can find this in Chicago. The first melanated person that discovered Chicago was an actual Haitian. Know what I mean? So these are all historical facts that you can find yourself and see what's going on. Know what I mean? Because your local high school is not going to teach you that.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
So
Let me take a quick pause for the cause.
What?
Salute Great Pill Podcast. I see you, dog.
Hey.
You know what I mean? Oh Lord, Daryl.
As it pertains to
what's good, Stan?
As it pertains to the Olmec civilization, I'm going to get into the Olmec civilization last. But what I'll say about that right now is this: the Olmec civilization is a very obscure civilization. All we know is that they were Africanoid and they inhabited the Americas before prehistoric times. That's all we know. That's all we know. And we don't know where they're from. They don't have any we don't have no genetic proof that they are from Africa. They ever went to Africa. We have no proof of that. And that's what my point is tonight.
The statue it just shows you that this individual is melanated.
Listen to what I'm saying. No, you're not listening to what I'm saying. Just because someone has Africanoid features, phenotypes, right, does not mean they're from a specific landmass. That doesn't mean that. That's a hammer. That doesn't mean that. My contention tonight, and I'm going to go into some things, is that Africanoid people are not from this planet. They came to this planet and they inhabited the entire planet, meaning that you can find them indigenous to every single continent. They are not just indigenous to one specific continent and moved out in the last 5,000 years. That's not what that is. And there's no evidence to prove that.
Well, there's no evidence that proves that they're from a different planet.
Let me say this, family. And also, these things are referenced in the Bible and the Quran. If you read it thoroughly.
Right. Okay? I mean, the 5%ers also believe in this too. I mean, the whole storyline, the allegory story of Yaku and all that, the mad scientist and all that. Like, I mean, like there is allegory stories that co-line what she talking about, but I mean, that's.
Shut up.
I mean, if it's true, I mean, that's not the whole entire. I mean, that's not the whole. Yeah, go ahead. My bad.
Oh, my bad. Shout out to the 5%. So I'm actually reading the 120 Supreme Knowledge book right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's teaching me a lot of different things. You know what I'm saying? I'm learning a lot of different things. Go ahead, Rush. My bad.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, man. Like, I mean, there could probably be some validity to that, but like, there's no proof though. Know what I mean? Now, there is a certain melanated people in Australia. Their DNA has it's totally different from ours, and it doesn't match. Matter of fact, their DNA doesn't match anybody's DNA within the world. And this is why they come up with this theory that they might have derived from a different planet or whatever. But food for thought.
Well, and I was going to. That's why I said I was going to get into that later, because that's part of the current migration model that you have to account for, Australians because of their African phenotype, right? People look at them and say, well, they must be African, but then on a genetic level, they have no connection to Africa, or let's say people that we understand as sub-Saharan Africans, right? They have no genetic history. However, to make matters worse, if we say they walked from, let's say, East Africa through Asia and down into the Orient and then left on a boat and went to Australia, right? It would have took them a really long time to do that, all right? Now, inside of that migration, because we can clearly see in the European migration, according to them, black people turn white. So in this case, these black people would be more Asiatic than anything. However, when you look at the Aborigines of Australia, they have no genetic tie to Asia. They don't look Asian, and they don't have no cultural tie to Asia on top of that. So this is what I'm saying. Right now, scientists are befuddled in terms of how did humans, black people specifically, because we're the only humans on this planet, how did we get all over the planet in a time when we didn't have any technology to get all over the planet? And I have a theory about that. Now, there's a point to which evidence can't take me further, okay? Because we're talking about history. But I will do as much my due diligence to show as much proof as I can. But this is where it leads me to believe that, there comes a time in which we have to say, hey, there's some other shit going on other than what people are telling us. It's like there's certain evidence you won't be able to find. For instance, if somebody had technology that we don't know anything about, and that's the way they were able to do something, unless we find that technology, we will never know how they did what they did. And this is part of the enigma of the pyramids and some of the artifacts in ancient Egypt, that we see all of these great buildings and these artifacts that seem to be built with machines, but we don't find any machines. And we know they didn't build them with the tools that we find there. Those tools do not, they can't actually penetrate the actual material there. We know that. We've ran too many experiments to know you did not build that with what we found in your country. So who the fuck built that and how? That's what white people are so diligently trying to find out. And I'm right behind them when they find that shit. But for right now, tonight, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about just the general migration theory that I'm saying is a whole lie. And people just don't want to accept it because they don't have any other theory to put in its place. Like, they just don't. And they're saying, well, let's just accept this and teach this until we come up with something new, which is what young people are frustrated about, because they're saying, well, you're going to tell me in my history books that this is how human beings came to be. And every 10 to 20 years, you're going to change that shit every time somebody finds a new bone. Like, come on. Like, this is what I'm saying. We're not, most of the scientific community is not ready to accept this or what I'm about to say. So
hold on 1 second. Can you check the back chat real quick? Check the back chat. Give me a yes or no. And as you're checking the back chat, I'm just going to read these comments real quick. You know what I'm saying? Lady Phoenix says, there's some Aborigines in New England that will delete you if you call them Africans. So I stay in my lane calling all blacks Africans. Okay. BK apologist. Thanks for the check-in, bro. He said the supreme wisdom lessons are artifact of African American estherism informed by the Theosophy, New Thought, Mesmerism, Spiritualism, the speculative Freemasonry. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, bro. Shout out to you. Everybody who likes to subscribe to BK apologist as well. Let me check. Okay. All right. So Lola's going to share her evidence, all right? So everybody listen. And if you look, some of y'all may need to take some notes, all right? If you don't know about this, take notes, all right? You know what I mean? We're building right now. Go ahead, Lola.
Okay. And just so everybody knows that when I use the term black or Africanoid or sub-Saharan African, I'm only speaking about those who fit into a certain group phenotypically. I'm not speaking about the place Africa. I'm speaking about the people. And essentially what I'm saying is the people have a longer history prior to the continent of Africa. And we're beyond Africa, the continent, like for real, we're beyond that. And we're not looking at ourselves in terms of the longevity that we actually have, like currently, like we're not even looking at where that fits in the evolutionary history of just human beings, because we're sticking to a story based on theories, trying to find where Europeans come from, which is still a mystery. But this is the problem. So I'm gonna read some things that I wrote down, just so you guys can understand my thought process with things, right? And I'm gonna go into the Akkadian Assyrian system first, because I found something really interesting there. Now, that's not the oldest system. It's like second or third to it, but we'll get into it, right? So the word Asia, right, comes essentially from the Akkadian Assyrian culture or language, and it's under what we understand is Asu or Asu, right? Now, when you put "u" on the end of a word, the sound, not the letter, the English letter, but the sound, you usually know you're talking about a place, right? Or in present day terms, for instance, when we put an "n" on something like Afghanistan, American, African, like the "n" indicates phonetically we're talking about a place, right? So the word Asia comes out of that language pool, right in that little area up in there, right? And it literally means to rise or to ascend, right? That's the literal transliteration for it. Now, I found that that's very interesting, right? Because first of all, I didn't know that, but it was very interesting that that's what the word meant when I went further down the line. So when we say the word is derived from Mesopotamia, that's what I was looking for. It's in reference to the rest of the continent, now that the whole continent is named Asia, right? But we know that that word originally was not specific to the entire continent. It over time it became associated with the entire continent, but Asia or Asu was only specific to Mesopotamia, generally speaking. So when we talk about, and I know I think Rush mentioned it earlier about the 5%ers and the ones that talk a lot about the Asiatic black man, right? We're not talking about the entire continent of Asia. That's not what we're talking about. That's more specific than what we were giving it credit for. Now, obviously, we'll come back to that. But what I found interesting is that the symbol for this was what scientists now believe to be the highest deity in the Assyrian pantheon, which is Ashur or Asur, or what we know as the Yatin or the winged sun disk. You understand? Now, I don't have all of the images to show you. I can show you images like that, right? But actually, one image I have to show you on that, but I'll do that while somebody chimes in a second. But that's the symbol for Asia, the winged sun disk. Okay, so I found it interesting that I have a winged disc representing a place called the place of where ascension happens, or the place ascended, like something ascended to the sky. I just found that correlation conceptually interesting, right? Now, y'all can believe what you want, but I found that interesting, okay? And now, when we consider that the winged sun disk was in relation to a being from the sky, most Europeans call it the sky god, but we know that's just their understanding. And essentially, it was utilized to represent royalty, specifically in the culture. It becomes clear that the sun or the disk itself is a thing that carries important lineage or important people. One of the two, okay? But we got people and blood in people, and these people are regarded as the royals, okay? So I'll say from an image standpoint, whenever I've seen the winged sun disk, I've always wondered, well, why is a disc winged? What are we talking about? Are we talking about like the spiritual movement from body to the ether? Like, what are we talking about, right? But I knew, at least in my soul, that symbol had a different meaning than what the ancient Egyptians really understood it as. I understand that they utilized it to represent the royal lineage, right? but it's deeper than just the royal lineage, because you can just stamp that on every king and say, okay, this represents the royal lineage. That it's deeper than that. It's very much deeper than that. It's older than Egypt. So essentially the Egyptians were getting passed down knowledge that they knew a little bit about, but they didn't really know about. Like they got a little bit of knowledge, but it's like pieces of information that they've retained in their history, and they're still using that, because that winged disc doesn't originate in Egypt. It originates in ancient Sumeria, or what we call Mesopotamia. That's where that symbol comes from. So, you know, that symbol representing Asia and the place of the ascension. I just found that to be very interesting. Now, like I said, you talking about wings that represents flight, you know, and things like that. This is something that when you really look at it, and I'm just going to say this, you're talking about a round disc thing with the ability to fly, being a logo that represents a place that people say is the place of the first deities that came from the sky. Okay, but we find it in Africa, right? So from right here, we can see that there is non-quote unquote African symbology that came to Africa. It didn't come from Africa, it came to Africa. Now, when I say it came to Africa, I mean it physically came from one place there. The same people are carrying this message. It's just in a different place. It's the same people, different place though. So let me be clear on that. Right. So the next thing I want to talk about, right? Because like I said, you're talking about a place where not everybody, but most people understand that in ancient Sumeria, they have the quote unquote mythology that the first people, right, came down from the heavens and created human beings, right? And they were from a different place, right? Now, there's some skeptics that say these people say they were from a planet within our solar system that's on the outer fringes of our solar system, furthest away from the sun. And therefore, these people, as far as like how they look, would have been very white because they're from a place that don't get a lot of sun. Now, on the surface, that makes sense, right? In a place where you don't need as much melanin and stuff, you would be white. But when you actually read the literature, that's not what the ancient Sumerians wrote in their literature. I don't understand why these people like miss the obvious shit. The term Nibiru comes from the cuneiform tablets, and they're dated at least 5,000 years ago. And it literally means place of the cross or place of the crossing. Now, I know what you're thinking. The planet that's crossing, right? But I got something else for you. And in the cuneiform, when you see that word for Nibiru, you see a literal cross, like a literal cross. That's what you see. So you don't see like any images of stars and planets and stuff like that. You just see a cross, okay? Now, it's interesting that this same cross shows up in ancient Kemet inside of their wall reliefs, right? To mean place of the blacks. Like when you see it, it's talking about like a specific place, and it's talking about the place of the blacks. And I'm like, okay, same symbology, but it's talking about cross and a place, right? Now, I know we see it today on our maps as like where we want to go, but that's like a bastardized version of that symbology of the cross. But that cross goes further than just being a physical place, let alone just a cross that we see on a map. I'll say this. When we combine the winged sun disk with the symbology of the cross, and I'll show you guys that in a minute, that is combined in the cuneiform. What my contention is based on that, right? Because we can draw a lot of conclusions to a degree, but my contention based on that is that the winged disc is representative of a traveling people in the cosmos, and this is their logo, while having the same meaning of a literal place where it represents a star system that is dying. Okay. Now, and I'm talking about what you might know as a brown dwarf star, which is a star that emits heat, lots of heat, but it is dim and it's dying. And the only planets around it is the planets that are like within the habitable zone, like ourselves to our sun. If our sun was a brown dwarf star, you couldn't go to Pluto and see a damn thing. But you would still see shit. As far as we're concerned, we would still kind of sort of be warm, but the other planets wouldn't. It's my contention that cross, or when they say they're from the place of the crossing, they're talking about a brown dwarf star that is outside of our solar system that is dying, which gives credibility to the rest of the story, which is the reason they left said dying star is because it was fucking dying, and they came someplace to help save the people on their planet where there's a dying star. Like that, the word Nibiru did not mean they were from another planet here and shit. That's not what that means. And I'll show you guys some imagery so you can understand why I'm correlating.
Nibiru, a ship?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nibiru, isn't that considered to be like a spaceship or something like that?
No. Some people have, conspiracy theorists have taken that word and turned it into a planet that's in our solar system, a spaceship. They've turned it into a lot of things, like a lot of things. You've probably heard a couple things with that word, but that's just present day conjecture. When you read the actual text, okay, it says the word Nibiru means place of the crossing, or the cross. It doesn't mean planet. It just means place of the cross. And place of the cross has everything to do with that place looking like a cross or a pulsating star.
There's another allegory story. I mean, I call it allegory because I don't believe in it, but there's another allegory story based on the Elohim, which is like 12 melanated people, and they derive from a planet that inhabits 3 suns. You know what I'm saying? That's why their skin color is like purple or whatever. And they say that they came to planet Earth to create a humanoid just to dig gold, because the gold is able to restore their like I guess their ozone layer, and their planet was dying from that. You know what I'm saying? So
I respect the allegory part about it, because like you said, we have to use the word allegory for technical reasons, right? But we do know that allegories can be historical, but it doesn't mean that it's false. But we have to use that word under the circumstances, right?
Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm like crazy, like I'm into, I mean, like spooky stuff like that. But I mean, like this is
too late for that. Too late for that, brother. Too late for that.
I just bump into some, weird information. I mean,
right. It is weird, but to that point, right? And that's very interesting. When you see people from, let's say, off the coast of India and in Sudan, the darkest people alive. I mean, they are darker than the night sky for real, like blue people for real. You have to ask yourself, why are they so dark? Because that level of melanin, right, is too much for this planet. Meaning the level of sun we get on this planet.
Right. But they're like cast out with Africa though. Like,
but wait a minute. But what I'm saying is, when you see that level of melanin, right? Don't get me wrong. Melanin exists everywhere, right? Yeah. However, that level of melanin makes you wonder, like, how did they get that level of melanin? But other people don't need that, because we get sun and night, and we have seasons here. So it's like that level of melanin seems to be extreme. I always thought that what would make sense is if we went to a planet that had 2 suns, or let's say 2 suns and a dwarf star, whereas they always get daylight, there is no nighttime because they have 2 suns in the sky and maybe a dwarf star. That dark melanin would be necessary, because if you're getting sunlight,
you're constantly absorbing sunlight.
You need that. So I don't know that, right? But when I seen that, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I just, food for thought, man. I just threw that out there, man.
That's real food for thought for you right there. Like, let's talk about.
And it's funny you keep mentioning about sub-Saharan Africans. They believe in Gilgamesh, right? And when you when you learn about Gilgamesh, he's similar to the nigga named Nimrod. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
And in scriptures, right, where they break down who Nimrod is, he's considered to be the man of renown, and they also call him the mighty hunter. Now, the word mighty derives from a either Hebrew or Greek. I think it's Hebrew. It derives from a word named Gabor. Gabor means like big, giant.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's one of those things that lead some theologians to believe that Nimrod was a Nephilim. Know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. That would make sense.
He was able to do above average things than the normal man. That's why he was considered to be a man of renown. Know what I mean?
Right. But you see how when we use the word mighty, right, how that takes us to a different mental place than what it really is saying. The word mighty is literally speaking directly to his physicality in terms of his height and size. But when we think of mighty, we just think of his ability to do something, when in reality, no, it's telling you this man, it looks like this, and he is doing something specific. But because English has been broken down so much, we miss the obvious shit there.
Now, this dude Nimrod, right? Mm-hmm. He was building the Tower of Babel. Now, at this period of time, I guess everybody looked alike. They had the same language and all that. Due to the fact because he was building this temple, right? It was considered to be blasphemy. So Yah came down himself to knock down this. Well, I wouldn't say himself, but something caused the temple to collapse, and he spread out all these people from different parts of the planet, and that's why there is different, ethnic groups, because at that time when he separated everybody, they looked different and they spoke different languages. Know what I mean? Now this information, this story derives from scriptures itself. If you read thoroughly, know what I mean?
But I think in my personal opinion, I believe that happened, but I think that the way where it's been put in the Bible makes you think it happened sometime recently, like within the last couple thousand years.
Right. But here's the thing, right? There's a lot of information in scriptures that don't get into depth into a lot of things. That's why there's different lost books that could supplement what information that they're leaving out within those scriptures. Know what I mean? But that's another topic or subject matter.
In terms of in terms of the reason why the Bible just touches on different stories and it doesn't go too far in depth into each and every one. We could talk about that on a different stream. But I see what you're saying, because essentially you're saying that the Bible is attesting that there was a point in time in history when everybody was the same ethnic group and spoke the same language. And then something happened and they were spread out forcibly all over the planet. The same people are spread out all over the planet. Now, remember what I said when I first got on the stream, that where the fuck do white people come from if the original habits on every single place in this planet was black people? Where they come from? That's a different. That's a different.
Now, here's the thing, right? It's funny you say that, right? Now, as far as like Africans, right? Melanated people, when they copulate together, they have the ability to bear a child with a fair skin, opposed to two white individuals. They can't do that. Like the child, they can't produce a black child. I mean, they can only produce a white child. In lame terms, it's like some believe that the Caucasian is the youngest generation, and they derive from our seed. Know what I mean? Now, it is a recessive gene, and a recessive gene is a mutated gene. So, it's a possibility that they might have derived from our seed. Know what I mean?
When you say derive from our seed,
hold on, y'all. Hold on. I got to pause for the cause real quick. Mm-hmm. Just want to share Victor Free's comment. He says, Ecclesiastes 12:12, and further, by these, my son, be admonished and making many books. There's no end, and much studies awareness of the flesh. Vic, I'm gonna let you come through, bro. I think Mr. Shun, were you done with your point? I don't want to let him up if he wasn't done.
I'm not done just yet, because I got to get through a few things. Me and Rush just kind of went off on a tangent a little bit. Because these are some good points.
And that's why Rush is up here. That's why Rush is up here.
So
also,
these are some good
salute
points
to Moments with Mickey Red. Good to see you, Mickey. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm kind of having a little bit of technical difficulties. Oh, yeah, there you go. Moments with Mickey Red. Salute. Daryl Long has come back. Thank you for coming back, bro. Appreciate you. But yeah, go ahead. My back, y'all.
So so what me and Rush was talking about, it does deserve a whole stream by itself. It does, but it just goes to show that sometimes when you get a snippet of an event, right, that's literally what you're getting. You have to give clearance for the fact that there's more to the story, but these stories are older than what you may perceive them to be. That's my first contention when it comes to stuff like that. But we will get into those in a different segment. But I do want to move forward with this one, right? So if we talk about the name Sumeria, right, or how it's originally enunciated, Sumeria, okay. Sumeria in essence is just another name for Mesopotamia, right, man? We know Mesopotamia means place between the two rivers, but it's the same region. We're talking about the same place. You understand? Just different name. But why the name Sumeria, right? And I think we can, like, and before anybody say anything, okay, I know where you think I'm about to go with this. I'm going to talk about, the word more meaning black. Now, I could take that position, but I'm going to take another position, and I'm going to make the same point without even talking about that. I'm going to make the same point because a lot of people would say that's conjecture, but I'm gonna take a different route to prove that that's what that means, but just walk with me. So when you look at, for instance, the prefix su, well, what we understand is su, right? For how we enunciate it, su is interchangeable, for instance, with kwatu, right? Literally, it's interchangeable for like kwat or kwatu, whatever, because the vowels are in there. We have to say that because we're human, right? Now, inside of the cuneiform text, what's interesting about the word, like that has that's not the word, but let's say the concept of su, right? It's representative of the human hand in the cuneiform text, and people might not pay attention to that and think anything of it, right? But that, to me, is the equivalent of how the Egyptians used to use images to represent ideas. So when you see, a human hand being used inside of a word that represents a place, right? It's a conceptual link to humans, like what we are. Okay, like it's a conceptual link, and we're talking about whether we're talking about a place where humans are, or a place where humans were created, right? Or a place where they're from. We're still talking about humans. We're not talking about, things that are not human. Like, and when I say human, I'm just talking about us, okay? Because DNA replicates. It doesn't do other shit. Like, our ancestors have been our ancestors from the beginning of time, no matter where they were or are in the universe. So that's what that is, and I found that to be very interesting, and I think we can intuit like how that is connected. However, when we get to the term meru or moru, right, it's like it's bastardized to Maria now, okay, but essentially the root word is more. That's the root word. Now we can understand what that means in terms of whether we're talking about color or a light, whatever the case may be. We know what the word more means.
It definitely means color of
right.
Melanated, because the word more derives from the word moreno.
Right.
Moreno is a lot is Spanish, but moreno is a Latin word, and we all know Latin or Pig Latin is one of the oldest languages that's been around for a minute. I mean, right. English is probably the youngest form of English. Yeah. So,
very
or most youngest form of a language. I mean.
Yeah, and because it's broken at that. It is a broken language on top of being the last language. But I'll say this, right? When you go into, let's say, the Hindu languages, right, and you look at this word more or Sumeria, right, or Sumeria, right. The word meru or more, right, is translating to something that has to do with something high, like at its height. Like usually you hear that word in reference to things on the top of a mountain, right? But the word itself conceptually is talking about the highest point, or that which is above everything, right? Now, conceptually, the only thing that is above everything is the royal family, like royal bloodline, that which is pure. So from a conceptual
it's funny you say that, right? Because the group of these half man, half demons from the scriptures, they're considered the tribe of Anunnaki, and they're considered to be the royal. The word Anunnaki means royal bloodline. I mean, so it's funny that you keep bringing that up. You know what I mean?
It's another form of, but see, here's the thing: Anunnaki comes a little later on. It comes a little later on, so it's not the purest form of the word, but the purest form of the word is Anuna, which means the same thing. But it's like, that's why I try to
hold on before you go, right? The Egyptians, they worship a god named Anu, which is considered a sky god. Now I mean,
but you see the correlation. But what I'm trying to draw a parallel here is you see the correlation between black and the first person, that their ancestors and their deities, right? We're talking about black people from the fucking sky. Black people. Talking about melanin, black people, highest order, royals, coming down, going up, but we still talking about black people. That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to take the whole, more like route to prove it. What I'm saying is when you go into any language and you start seeing where these words are, conceptually, we're still talking about royal bloodline, the first bloodline, and that being a black bloodline on this planet. Okay, and I'm not talking about no ancient prehistoric like ape man. I'm talking about high level shit beyond what we can understand today. So that's some shit. Now I do want to go.
Wouldn't you instead of having a grasping the idea of these people are aliens, wouldn't you consider these are the fallen angels that the scriptures is talking about? I mean,
here's the thing: the word angel. The word angel. The word angel, right, puts you inside of a religious mind frame when you use it because of where you're used to hearing it at, right? But essentially, when we use the word alien, we just mean someone that's not from this planet. They're from another planet. Right. That's all it means. Somebody from a different planet. Maybe they're a stage 2, stage 3 civilization from another planet, which means they're beyond us in every sense of the word. So it's like, we can use the term extraterrestrial, we can use the term alien, or we can just stick with what the people are saying here about themselves, which they are the royal bloodline that started this race, and they came down to this planet. Like, we could just stick with that. We don't got to call them aliens, but we all know what we're talking about. It's just some people feel funky about using those terms, and I'm good.
I mean, Christians will probably look at it as, and I kind of agree with them, that this is a narrative that's kind of going to the guidelines that aliens created mankind, which is totally false.
No, it's true. We created dogs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I
we created dogs. We created dogs.
I mean, listen, man. Like, this is.
We created a dog. We created a dog last year. No, a couple years ago.
A dog.
Yes, dogs are not natural creatures to the planet. You didn't know that?
You're kind of going left right now. I mean, we already left, but you're really making a sharp left.
Human beings genetically manipulated wolves and created what you see today.
Right. See, this is where you go back to the
Hold on, family. Hold on. Pause for the call. Salute to the wonderful, outstanding, our sister, Misunderstood. Hey, family, what's going on?
Okay. Go ahead, Rush.
Yeah, you know what, man? I kind of don't really want to expound on this, but you'll keep doing your thing.
Okay. I'm just saying. It doesn't mean that. Too late. Wait, it doesn't. I'm not saying that God, for who God truly is, the creator of the universe, does not exist and isn't responsible for the universe itself. Okay, because I'm gonna get into that in a different stream, but that's some more high level woo woo shit. But that does not negate the fact that genetic manipulation happens, and we ourselves can create a human being if we want to now.
And this is where the allegory story comes from, the 5%ers, where they speak on the whole Yaku situation, the mad scientists beefing with the people that live in the ocean, and I think the mad scientist manipulated the gene, and therefore he created the white man. You know what I mean? And this is the storyline. They kind of, I'm like giving you like a real quick, chopped up version of it. You know what I mean? Just to, get straight to the point. But this is what they subscribe to. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm gonna research that because, like I said, I haven't researched like the idea of where white people come from. Because right now, I'm just to a point where I'm like, okay, if I can prove that the first inhabitants of every European country was an Africanoid people, right? I can prove that. The question becomes, even in Russia, Sweden, the whitest places of white originally was black. Where did the white people come from? Like where the fuck do they come from? But we can get into some of that other stuff, but I gotta research that a little more because I'm not really well versed in it yet. But I will research that what you said. But what I do want to get into is the truth of the matter is, right? Sumeria, right, or Sumerians, they didn't call themselves Mers or Moors, right? They didn't call themselves that. That's a name that they became known for later on, and honestly in much recent history. But they actually referred to themselves as Sagiga. That's what they referred to themselves in their language, Sagiga. Okay, now that's Sagigiga. All right, now this literally translates to the black-headed people. Literally translates to the black-headed people. So Rush, when you said, well, we're talking about melanin, right? Like no matter what word we transliterating, it's still referring to the color of melanin, not just like just a regular color, but the color of melanin, right? We're still here with that shit. You see how we done went through all these words, but all these words mean the same fucking thing? You see it? So this is where my research started getting like really, really deep. Because I was like, okay, so they call themselves black. Or the black people, that the black-headed people, or the people that look black. That's what they call themselves. Now, this is what's written in their text. This isn't something that we find outsiders writing about them. This is what's in their text, in their handwriting about themselves. So I'm sitting here like, okay, so the ancient Mesopotamian people called themselves the black people, the black-headed people. Okay, so the oldest civilization we know is a black civilization, not an Arab civilization, not an Indo-European civilization, unless Indo-European, we're talking about Africanoid people, Africanoid-looking, phenotypically type people. Like, that's what we're talking about here. And excuse me, this goes to the point that when you hear about Black history, you don't hear about this. When you see images of ancient Mesopotamia, you see a bunch of white people building ziggurats. You don't see a bunch of Black people putting them shits together with ancient technology. No, you don't. And nobody ever stops to think, well, hold on. How did y'all put them ziggurats together when one brick weighs more than several elephants, and we don't even have technology to do that today? How did y'all do that with that dumbass shit y'all was working with? How? Y'all don't have nothing like that in your arsenal to be showing that you did that. That ain't in your culture. Like, what the fuck is really good with these images? So this is, again, Sagiga. That's what the ancient Mesopotamians called themselves at the earliest height of writing that we know of on this planet. The black-headed people. So that's pretty deep. Now, the claim essentially is, oh, hey Victor, can you hear us?
Vic, can you hear us, Vic? Vic, go ahead, keep building, Lola, keep building.
Okay. So, like I said, my original contention is that, Black people, right? We inhabited Africa probably after the fact. That Africa was not the place where we came up in and we evolved from over trillions of years and stuff. No, we actually came to Africa and inhabited it from Mesopotamia. That's my contention. And based on just the verbiage that has been utilized in ancient texts, it points to the fact that these people were black before they went to Africa or anywhere else. Like, if these are the first people, these right here are what we're talking about. Now, by the time I get to the end, I'm gonna say something else, a little controversial, but I will get there. One thing I do want to point out, because I know some people might try to say, well, you're forgetting about something else. There was this interesting name that was also that you find in the ancient Mesopotamian text, the most ancient text they have, called the Igigi. Now, this word Igigi doesn't have any relation to any word on the planet, okay? But what I'm going to do, and this is a word that the ancient Sumerians were known to go by, right? However, this is from what people have derived from their scriptures. This is a race of people that they brought with them to this planet that were already their slaves on another planet. But they were phenotypically indifferent, meaning you couldn't tell the difference, but they were their slaves that they brought to this planet to do work for them. Now, this is where we talk about real history as far as slavery is concerned. When I said this has happened before, chattel slavery and uprisings have happened before involving black people, but we don't know where it's at because we're in the last 5,000 years. We got to go beyond the last 5,000 years and kind of put these stories together and understand that no, we're just repeating history. This isn't the first time this didn't happen, right? So I don't want anybody to think that I don't understand the history when it comes to the Igigi. But the fact that the point of tonight is for me to just put out there for you guys to, rap about or whatever, is that we're talking about phenotypically black people, not from this planet, coming to this planet, having a culture of slavery, of work, of technology, of a lot of fucking shit. And they started a colony here. And this is where we start from, meaning not on this planet. Our history isn't just here. And it damn sure isn't just on the continent of Africa, which a couple thousand years ago wasn't even there. Like, because we were talking earlier about Pangea, and obviously that changed from something else. So the continent of Africa is something that has not always existed. However, our people are older than that planet, that continent. So we got to be honest with that. The continent is just a place. We're older than the place. Just let's just be clear about that. Let me say this. Now to the word Igigi, right? This is where I said, Rush, earlier that evidence can only take you but so far, and you have to intuit the rest. When it doesn't matter if you're talking about African Americans, Africans in the diaspora, Africans on the continent, no matter when you talk about black people, right? Whenever we double up on a word, right, we know what that means. It just means a more intenseness of whatever word we're talking about. For instance, the word Baba, right? We understand it means father. In all of the word, it means father. But why does it mean father, right?
Abba.
Well, some people say Abba, but I've heard most people say Baba, right? Like most Africans say Baba, right? But I've heard Abba too. But at the end of the day, Abba is a derivative of Baba, right? Like ma and mama, right? The fact is, what we're doing is we're doubling up on a word, and that double up literally just means that which came before, that which is more of. Like when I say my grandfather, right? That literally means big daddy, big father, which means father on top of father on top of father. But you see the conceptual connection there when we double up on words. Now, if we talk about like the what the word "gi" stands for, right? We might not ever be able to do that because it doesn't have any meaning in any language that is on this planet right now. However, as a people, we can intuit what that means, right? Because we're talking about something that's really something, right? The Igigi could be a word that is reference a rebel group, a people that's like, really, really like rebelled out or some shit. Because again, these are the quote unquote slaves, right? Like, so that could mean that, but we do know where that doubling up comes from culturally. Like, it don't come from nowhere. It's been passed down too many generations for us to act like we don't know what that really is. But that's what I'll say to that. And I'll just say, when you read these terms, yeah, you have to kind of put things together to like intuit what it means, but it doesn't take away from the fact that the Igigi were regarded as powerful beings equal to the ones that enslaved them, and they were more. Well, they wasn't more anything, but they were essentially the same people, but not really. Like it's almost like they were different races that just looked the same, like but different races all together. How that is, I don't know, but I will get back to everyone on that. Best believe. But right now, I'm just giving you guys based on my information what the conclusions I've drawn just based on what's here on this planet. So that's what that is. Like, and I'll give you an example. Like when somebody says, oh, so and so is tall. What do we mean? We mean that they're exceptionally tall. They're not normally tall. Well, you see what I'm saying? Like when we say blackety black, what are we talking about? We're talking about something that's exceptionally black, or that which is the beginning of black, that which is more deeper depths than black, like a color that's darker than black. Like that's what we're talking about when we double up on words. So conceptually, from a cultural standpoint, we can see that we have a connection to that ancient Mesopotamian culture that has drifted into other parts of the world. And when I say drifted, I literally mean just that. Like it drifted into other parts of the world per people spreading to other parts of the world, not people being in other parts of the world and that were coming to Mesopotamia. That's not what the evidence is showing. It's showing everything came out of Mesopotamia into Africa, into Europe, into Asia, and into the Americas, not the other way around. So I ain't gonna talk too much about the Igigi, but I just wanted to put that out there in case somebody thought I didn't know about that and what that means. But that's generally the gist of it. So okay. Just want to read my notes here. Okay, so I did mention that about the difference between when we say the oldest human beings being found in Africa. What they found in Africa was not human. I can't emphasize that enough. Don't get me wrong. Black people are old people. What I'm telling you is that our history on this planet goes back 400,000 years as modern human beings. I'm not telling you that we some new shit or whatever. I'm not telling you that we some old shit. What I am saying is that we're older than what we're really giving things credit for. And what was found in the ground in Africa, it has no genetic relation to us. Like it just doesn't. And we need to figure out what this means versus trying to fit that dumb shit into our story. Meaning, oh, we found monkeys in the ground. So how can we figure out how our history says we're monkeys? Like this is just silly season. So I had that in my notes again here, but I did touch on that. Yeah, and when I say humans, I just mean legit humans, meaning like anatomically what they call as Homo sapiens sapien humans. And some European researchers will tell you that your sub-Saharan African black people are the only humans on this planet. Like they're the only like pure humans on this planet. They have no genetic tie from anything else. They're its purest form. So, so we understand that, because I know some people may think, oh, we're talking about all humans. No, we're not. And I'm not. We're going to, like I said, me and Russ, essentially, we might get together and do another stream on the other humans and stuff and where they derive from based on maybe what some of the other, like the 5%ers and the 1%ers and different people have, theorized. But that's a different conversation. And that's a long conversation, to be honest with you. But nevertheless, I want to go on. Now, all right. So like I said, what I'm saying to you is that the evidence points that we're older than what we're giving it credit for, right? According to the Sumerian stories, based on how they have numbered their culture, right? Based on the reigns of their different kings, they roughly, according to them, they created human beings around 200,000 years ago, roughly 200,000 years ago, according to them. Okay. Now, they could be lying, but it's mighty interesting that according to our DNA, it only dates back to 200,000 years ago. And I mean that literally. Our genome only dates back to 200,000 years ago. And that's exactly when these people said they created human beings, based on how they numbered their king's list. Now, you can find their king's list in different museums, right? You can go to, England and find artifacts. You can obviously go to museums out in the Middle East, in Europe, different parts of Europe and stuff like that. And out here, I think I was in Washington, D.C. and I seen some stuff. But obviously they get it from out there. But no matter where you search at, what you're going to find is, according to the ancient Sumerians, they and their children, obviously, they recorded somewhere between, I want to say 7, 8 to 10, 12-ish type kings, or whatever the case may be. Roughly 8 kings. And they named these 8 kings based on how long they reigned in human history, right? Now, interestingly enough, there's a artifact in Luxor, Egypt, that has the same king list there in Luxor, Egypt. And essentially what the Egyptians said in their time, because obviously this is way later, in their time, they said that the first kings, and during what's considered the first time, right, meaning the time of the first kings, these kings lived exceptionally long. Now, I know a lot of you might be thinking about the Bible right now, right? But let me say this about the Bible. The Bible only gives you a snippet of what I'm talking about, meaning this: the Bible takes you up to the Bible tells you basically when human beings came on the planet, right? They genetically were biologically built to live as long or just as much as long as these ancient people being talked about in these scripts, right, meaning thousands of years.
From the big, I think, okay, this is a character within the scriptures said that he lived for a minute, right, a couple hundred years. Now, from back then, I think we had elongated telomeres, which allowed our cells to keep reproducing. Because once your telomeres is runs up and it's done up, right, you won't be able to produce any more cells, right, and that's why you die. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I think back then niggas had elongated telomeres, man. You know what I mean?
But what's interesting about the Bible is that the Bible is telling you that when human beings came on the scene, this was a part of our genetic makeup. It was. To live, I think somebody in the Bible lived 900 years.
Something happened where it caused us not to be able to live as long.
Correct. Correct. But the Bible is not giving you the full story, which obviously it can't, because the Bible would be a never-ending book. But at the end of the day, the Bible literally is giving you the piece of the story that I think is most important, which is when we came on the scene, we had a genetic connection to living long as fuck. And the only people on this planet that live that kind of lifespans are people that, according to the books that we have on record, are people that lived, niggas reigned for 45,000 years. Yeah. Your reign was 45,000 years.
Not the mic. Oh Lord.
That's the mic. It's let me stop. But that's what I'm saying. When you read the Bible, it's not giving you everything, because it can't give you everything, but it gives you a snippet that we have some genetic connection to this thing, right? But then it tells you at some point in time that shit was cut short on purpose. Now, I forgot.
It was cut short on purpose because we was wilding.
No, I'm not saying why. What I'm saying is what it's telling you, because sometimes with the Bible you can't get too much into the details because you'll lose the story. But what it's essentially saying is however long we lived, right? It was purposely cut down to exactly 120 years. The reason why that's important is because when you look at our genetics today, it's only 120 years that our telomeres can replicate. And we have biologically been stifled down to 120 years. Scientists can see in our genome that we have literally been artificially cut to 120 years, meaning at some point before we were living longer. We can see that in our DNA. So when the Bible tells you that for whatever reason it was cut, we know okay, this is a real event in human history. Like, we can correlate it regardless of why. We can correlate that this event took place. Now, according to the ancient Mesopotamian scriptures, it alludes to, it doesn't really openly say, but it alludes to why they cut that short, right? In terms of keeping human beings at a certain level relative to themselves, right? Now, how that happens, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not slicing and dicing, DNA and shit like that. I went to school, I got my degree. Yes, it has a lot to do with DNA, but to that level, I did not go to school for. Okay, so I'm not gonna explain that shit.
Let's take a pause for the cause real quick. Gotta welcome my man Victor Freeze Music. Vic, what up, man? Anything you want to build on real quick before we continue?
Yo, peace. Can y'all hear me all right?
Little choppy.
Little choppy.
Yo, hold on, I'm gonna switch mics and see what happens.
Okay. You still there, Vic?
I think he's switching to a headset or Bluetooth. Yeah, go ahead, Lola.
So what we know is people was living long as shit at least 200,000 years ago when human beings popped up. But according to their texts, these texts of these black-headed people, they were here prior to human beings. And they were here prior to human beings roughly 200,000 years before human beings even popped up on the planet. Okay? That's what they are saying. And they're giving specific dates and times that you can actually chart. Now, what's interesting about that is that when we turn to the Quran, right? And a lot of people may not be familiar with some of the stories in the Quran that the Quran is derived out of. If you've ever heard of the jinn, right? A lot of people say, well, the jinn is an ancient species of man that lived before human beings.
Jinns are considered to be evil spirits, but
yeah. Hold on, because I don't want to get into their mythology about that. I want to get into
when they use the terminology of jinn, that's what it means, like an evil spirit.
The word, listen, Arabs, like white people, have chopped that shit up. Okay, that's another stream. But what I'm gonna say is this: according to the Quran, okay, without getting into too many details, right? These humanoid people lived on this planet prior to mankind, that like who we are, that first Adam, or let's say the last Adam, based on these people. They were here before us, and a long time at that. So, and there came a time in which, according to the Quran and the Hadiths, that human beings couldn't see them anymore, meaning that we were indistinguishable. Now, some people say that the term jinn means hidden, as in you can't see them with your eyes physically, like they're invisible. But then you have a faction of Muslims that don't believe that. They say that the term jinn just simply means concealed, not hidden, as in you can't physically see it. It's to literally mean you see 16,000 people. You don't know which one of them are jinn, but you can see 6,000 people. These jinn are not invisible. They're just indistinguishable. That's the difference. So that's just something I'm putting out there, because when you talk about beings on this planet that existed prior to us, right? There's evidence in different books that say, hey, we popped up here and there were already other people here thousands of years prior to. Now, when I say other people, I'm just talking about other black people. Might not have been from this planet, but there were other black people here, right? And they were not like cavemen, like how white people would want you to believe, like running around, like doing crazy stuff. I don't even believe white people started out as cave people, but that's another conversation. But essentially, this lines up with everything that we know. Like, it literally lines up with the Earth timeline. It lines up with our genetic timeline. It just lines up with it even lines up with the fucking Bible. Like, this is crazy, okay? And I know, because I'm not a Christian, but I know a lot of people would say, well, don't use the Bible and all of that. I'm not saying that the Bible is the source of all of information, right? But the Bible is an ancient book from our time that records something that it records a history in a time that we consider historical, and it points to a wider conversation of history that obviously it doesn't fully cover, but we understand, okay, this is a conversation that exists, and this is a topic and a concept that exists. We may not fully understand it from this book because obviously the book can only be but so many pages. But yeah, this is something that we can draw from. Not necessarily the only thing we can draw from, but it is something we can draw from. Because if you don't read these ancient scriptures in these other cultures and all these different languages, and you ain't into that, but you do read the Bible, you can kind of keep up with what I'm saying in terms of, at some point, even the Bible teaches us that we were genetically changed to be what we are right now, but we were operating on a more superior level prior to a certain level.
Right. And you're talking about the mature state of the body. Now, yeah, it's just used in different terminology. Like, for example, when the story in Genesis breaks down Eve eating the forbidden fruit, like, yo, at that specific moment, there was a genetic alteration towards our genes, man. And that's why, you know what I mean? We're not living forever no more. We're at this lower level tier of our bodies. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know?
And I hate getting into the debate about the quote unquote fruit or the apple or you know, that whole back and forth thing, right? Because essentially what I know is what the Bible was pointing to is that there was a point in time in which humans operated a certain way based on what they were. And then when they came in contact with something, whatever that fucking something is, they came in contact with something that changed them fundamentally. And after that, they operated differently as a result. Now, you can say they operated better. You can say they operated at a lesser state in terms of, like you said, the biological workings. However, that is the major point is that we keep seeing in the Bible that is telling us genetically we have been upgraded and downgraded several times over again. And according to scientists today in 2023, they can clearly see in our genetic pool where we have been suddenly upgraded and suddenly downgraded and then suddenly upgraded again. Like, they can see where all these genetic jumps just keep happening, and it's not natural. Because we got other species that we can compare ourselves to that naturally have evolved from a certain point to a different point.
Like a horse.
Right, like a horse. Or
horse didn't look the way it looked now. Right. Back then it looked mad premature. Like when you see the original pictures of how horses looked, it looked really premature. I'm like, yo, this is a horse? Right. And then break down the involvement of the horse becoming what it is now. I mean?
Right. It's progressive, and you can clearly see it. However, in our case, we're not progressive. It's like we popped up on the scene from nothingness, and then suddenly we got downgraded. Then we got upgraded. Then we got downgraded in different parts of our genome, because you know your genome is made up of different parts. It's not just like one line. So different parts is upgraded in a way that it's like that's not a natural jump. Like, we've been jumping as if somebody's been playing with our genetics, if purposely, whatever the hell that is. This is what's happening. And again, I'm not saying the Bible is the all-knowing, everything is in the Bible. I'm not saying everything is in the Bible. But what I am saying is if you are religious, you have a basis to at least consider this information that maybe, just maybe, the Bible is pointing to a more ancient past, beyond 6,000 years ago, beyond 25,000 years ago, beyond 400 years ago. It's pointing to a different past, and we're not looking at it because we're in this European mindset that everything has to be what I can see and break apart. And if it's not that, then obviously it doesn't exist. Like, we kind of got to get out of it.
Real quick, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you better
now, baby. Let's go.
Okay, now we cooking. Peace to everybody on the panel. My brother Rush, Miss Lola. I've never spoken to you before, but I've been hearing your voice. You know what I'm saying? Very powerfully out here in these YouTube streets.
Well, thank you.
Peace to my brother. He's the best of them. I call him
baby.
Hey, So look, I got like one comment, but I'm really just listening, you know. But I don't come, to debate in the sense of in a contentious manner, but to discuss.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So keep that in mind when I ask these questions. What? So when we speak of the term God, right?
Mm-hmm.
The only place Jesus is found is in the Bible, correct?
The present day canon, no, you can find him in different canons.
Without religion, there is no Jesus, correct?
Yes and no. Yeah.
Okay. So Jesus is the pivotal figure inside of the Christian religion, right? Because
Yeah.
he is the bridge between what we would consider man and the holy. He is the bridge. He cleanses us in order for us to be able to make passage into a realm where otherwise we would not fit the criteria to be. So that's why the Christian religion turns everything back to Jesus. Like, hey, you can do all the works you can, but without the faith in Jesus, it is fruitless. So the question I ask is this: if you're addressing God without addressing Jesus, then that means you're moving outside of the doctrine that is Christianity, right? And Christianity is something that was created after Jesus' death. Now, if you think about the concept of time, right? To my understanding, God does not exist in time. Mm-hmm. However, if we're just trying to wrap our human brains around concepts that are way higher than us, if we're talking about time and what happened and where we come from and the originators and how long people use, I don't know nobody on this panel that's over 100 years old, right? Do y'all know many people over 100?
I only know one person that made it over 100.
So even if you talk to that person that was over 100 and they gave you all the game that they could possibly muster up in their possible memory, there's a limitation to how much they even know. Mm-hmm. So everything else that we believe on is secondhand knowledge and faith-based. What we believe to be true without physical proof. So, I mean, even if you say, okay, there are artifacts that say this and that, and scientists have dated, these are the same scientists that y'all don't trust to stick you in the arm so you can go to work or vaccinate your children. So at the end of the day, we kind of be back and forth about the white man's book, the white man this and the white man that. But then when it's convenient, we trust his word. So in reality, my question is, if all of this stuff predates anything that we can verify, why do we seek so hard to find answers to things that we know we can never confirm?
Okay, hold on. Don't go no further, so I can address that, right? Okay, so I think it's clear amongst thinking Black people, even amongst thinking white people, that when we talk about God, the word God, we're very precise in what we are talking about. Now, we can clearly say on this panel that the word God has been bastardized from the European concept of whatever they believe up there. And they have attributed that term to things that it does not go to. And they have basically fucked the whole game up with this word God. Okay. Now, even though the Europeans are transliterating and translating these ancient texts to say the gods or God, or they throwing this word God around. We know that they're throwing around an era of a concept in that God, the God being, the supreme being that this universe rests within, okay, or as, is not what these ancient texts is actually talking about when you read the text, like in full concept. When you read the entire story, it's not talking about the God that you may pray to that is everywhere and nowhere at the same time throughout the whole universe. These texts is not talking about that. So we have to be very open and clear with each other that when we see this word God, we need to be clear on what we're talking about, like, because we can get very confused very fast. And yeah, so if you talk about the Christian paradigm of where Jesus fits in at and all of that, nothing that I'm talking about today negates anything Jesus said, negates any concept in Christianity, negates any concept between Christianity and Judaism or Hebrewism, none of that shit. So let's be clear about that. Okay, like that's why I said, like, I don't mind using the Bible, jumping to the Quran, all of that, because all of these books are pointing to something bigger. Now, from a conceptual perspective, in terms of what Jesus taught about your spirituality, that has no place in this conversation tonight. Like, we are not talking about that or what governs that or where you're gonna go or what none of that. That has nothing to do with this conversation. So when you hear people talking about this, keep in mind some of these terms, like the word God, has slipped in as a result of the Europeans trying to basically put their culture everywhere that it doesn't belong. There's certain concepts in Africa that don't exist in Europe. But when Europeans came to Africa, they just kind of labeled their shit over top of everybody's shit and then say, oh, well, they're worshiping multiple gods. These people are not worshiping multiple gods like they got schizophrenia. That's not what that was. But according to the Europeans, they confused as fuck. This is what I'm saying. Like in 2023, we can clearly say that, listen, the Europeans got some shit wrong. They did. That word God does not mean that, because we can read, okay? And we can kind of move forward in the conversation. When it comes to what we believe from the white man versus what we don't believe from the white man, everything the white man say is not a lie. First of all, every single thing he say is not a lie. All right. However, okay, their history is still their history. They got a lot of stuff wrong. They did a lot of wrong shit, but we can clearly tell where that's at and where it's not. However, to that point though, artifacts that you can go and research yourself, go physically see yourself, go touch yourself, go learn how to read yourself. This is not you believing the white man when it's convenient for you. The white man's information might correlate with what you have researched for yourself that you can verify for yourself from these documents, from these artifacts. However, at the end of the day, it's not about believing what the white man say and when it's convenient and when it's not. That's why I said specifically, I'm not here to tell people, oh, Christianity is where this information is coming from. I'm not trying to use the Bible to represent everybody's perspective in terms of evidence. What I am saying is that there's a point where people can come together and understand what I'm talking about, no matter what side you sit on the aisle. If you are a complete faith Bible thumper, you have to, if you follow the Bible, then you know what I'm talking about. You can go in your Bible and see human beings have genetically been engineered several different times in several different ways in their genome. And I'm not even going to break down that right there from the Bible. But if you don't follow the Bible, and let's say you're an agnostic, or let's say you're a Muslim, or let's say you follow the one of the Hindu religions, you can still follow what I'm saying, because it's all talking about something real that affects all of us. Now, to your question about, well, why are we talking about this to a degree, right? And I'm paraphrasing. Like I said in the very beginning of the stream, the two most important questions that is plaguing everybody's mind from childhood to death is, what is the universe and where do we come from? These are the two questions that we wake up thinking about and we go to bed thinking about as a species. Like, why is this information the furthest thing from us? We can know how to make babies from machines. We can know how to manipulate time, but we can't figure out where we come from. Like, you would think it's such an easy thing to understand. Like, but we don't know. These are two things that we just don't know, despite the fact that we can see the universe, but we can't understand it. We can see us, but we can't understand our origins because it's so obscure. These things are like a child. You're biologically built to know where you come from and what your origins are. This is why no matter how many children that are adopted, it always crosses their mind, where are my parents? Meaning, what is my origin? Like, even if they don't like their parents and they love their step parents, right? They still want to know, what is my origin? What am I? That is a fundamental question that every sentient being wakes up wondering and needing to know. This is why the African American story is so tragic, because everybody understands that the most fundamental thing in a human being was taken from African Americans, their identity of knowing their origin. For instance, I heard a Jewish man say, if you take a Jew, the identity of Jew from a Jew, you have killed him. Period. You have killed the man if you take his identity away from you. Meanwhile, we're still standing, wanting to know what is our identity. And tonight, what I'm saying is this: our identity is not on the continent. Even the people on the continent's identity is not on the continent. It's above the continent, literally. Okay. Like, and I feel like, because we kicking off Black History Month, if we're going to talk about our history as a people, we need to really get down to the nitty gritty and say things that are not comfortable. Meaning, like Rush was saying, he's not comfortable saying certain things because people may think he's crazy, right? Like I'm comfortable with it. Okay. I don't care. But some people are not comfortable yet because their thinking isn't there yet. They can't imagine the fact that we've been anatomically humans for almost 500,000 years. How is that when we only have the last 5,000 years on record? Like, how did that much get away from us? Why don't we know who we are when we have artifacts literally dating itself back to that time? And we're talking about past the last ice age, when ice was 2 miles thick over top of America. Like this information is staggering, but it's here. And what I'm doing is I'm trying to open that conversation up in a real way, and not in a way where people take it as conjecture or conspiracy theory or just people being Black supremacists. Because I know white people are going to say, well, she's just saying that because she wants to do the Black supremacist thing. No, I'm going to do a show on where y'all come from too. I don't believe y'all from the caves either. I feel like there's something else going on with y'all that would explain some things. But like me and Rush going to get together, we're going to do some research and I'm going to find it. But right now, I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't even know much about it. I just know for instance, when I looked at the history of Ireland, and I seen that the white people were basically saying, they were fighting everybody else because they were saying we're the inhabitants of this island. But then I just scratched the surface just a little bit, and I'm like, hold on, y'all. First people here was the Twa people. The first people here was the Twa people. And it just so happens that the Twa people show up in the ancient Egyptian records as royalty. How is that? How is it that you get from the same people regarded as royalty in the ancient Egyptian scripts, and you can clearly see these short ass people showing up as the first inhabitants in Ireland? How is that? Why do you feel like you own any damn thing? Never mind that. Where the fuck is the Twa people at in Ireland? This is another question, right? But again, when I do the history, I'm like, we showed up suddenly everywhere. That's serious shit to talk about. Black people did not evolve at all. As the Bible said, we came from nothingness. That is quite literal. We literally came from nothing and showed up literally overnight, as in 24 hours on this planet. And nobody's talking about that shit because they see it in the Bible and they kind of feel like, oh, that's just religion and shit. No. The Bible is based on other ancient texts. Those ancient texts are giving you the answers, but you're not mentally ready to accept it. You're just not. Because there's something else going on too when it comes to what this planet is that's even harder for people to accept. But I'm not going to get into that because I still got other stuff to do. But it's getting late, and I can do a part 2 to this because I got a lot of information still left to kind of get through because I'm all the way over in West Africa with this shit. But if y'all don't got time, I won't go into it.
So check me out real quick because I heard your rebuttal to what I asked. Um, the understanding, because to have this conversation outside of religion and just common sense and logic, I don't mind having it in that fashion. But if that's the case, then we have to acknowledge when history started being recorded, right? And it's a couple of books that you can read into that have some concepts about those things. But the general concept that I think anyone can get behind is that the start of agriculture is the start of written human history, because a nomadic people has no time or place to create, specialization, sciences, art, keep all of this outside of, oratory history, mouth to mouth. So we're talking about written history. There has to be a place where it can be stored. There has to be someone with the skill to create and the time to create. So what we're talking about is the creation of agriculture, where a tribe or a people can settle in one place and have time to develop a specialization to the point that they can start recording history in whatever form and whatever language that may be. So it would make way more sense that history would be a little shy in comparison to how old people are, the actual human race. Now, the Bible addresses a lot of those things that you were addressing, as far as origins of things, aliens, and so on and so forth. It addresses those things, but to acknowledge one is to acknowledge all. I'm not really a proponent of saying, okay, I'll take this, but I won't take that. Like, if you believe this book is true, then you would have to become a master in it, and its meaning for it to become useful to you. You know what I mean? You can't just pick and choose. So I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm just saying that if we're going to use the Bible as a reference, it references all of those things, and you don't have to necessarily go down these unlimited rabbit holes. That's why I put Ecclesiastes 12 and 12, I believe it is, which it basically says, until the end of time, somebody's going to be writing books. And you're never going to get to the end of the story, because
can you hear me?
Always going to have another of the story. So how do you ever conclude that, hey, listen, the history of man, what is his job on this earth? And if that is what you believe in, which is your God, then you have to determine what that is to you, whether that's a energy, whether that's a spirit, whether that spirit is in you, whether it's up high in the sky, whether it's contained inside of a book. But whatever that is, you have to be able to believe that in totality, and it has to give you some kind of a conclusion, so that you're not left in limbo on a perpetual Ferris wheel of information, which there will never be an end to.
Okay, hold on. Okay, so let me come back for that. Right now, let me work backwards in this case. Right. So when it comes to what is man's job on this planet versus what is your job on this planet as an individual, these are two separate concepts, and they're two separate conversations. You determine what your job is on this planet and within your culture, right? What man's job is on this planet and or other planets is something very different, okay? Whether or not we want to accept what our job is as a species here or elsewhere in this universe, that is a different conversation, but it's not the same. So for you to say, well, man's job here is to be nice to people, that's not what's written in any religious text or otherwise. That's not it. But if you want to talk about what is your position here on this planet, in your body, based on your own decisions, that's a different conversation than what we're having tonight. Now, when it comes to the unlimited rabbit holes, there is no unlimited rabbit hole here. There is not. For instance, you said inside, you quoted the Bible, and it says until the end of time. That phrase is very interesting. Until the end of time. So time is set, just like your genetics is set. So we can argue what reality is just based on that. And we can, in a sense, if let's say we were all atheists, we could debunk everything religious coming out of anybody's mouth just based on that everything is engineered. Therefore, there is no such thing as your position here on this planet, because it's all like an illusion. You will wake up. Like we can have that debate, but here's the thing. That's the endless rabbit hole right there. Whether or not time began, whether or not God began, whether or not there is an end, whether or not there's a real end, whether or not consciousness can end in time and you go someplace else, but does that really end? That's the endless rabbit hole, that religion that people want to debate over, and they have a right to debate over that. I actually like the debates, but what we're talking about tonight is not an endless rabbit hole. What I'm saying is our people have a longer history on this planet and another planet. And that's not endless rabbit hole. That's something that can be factually derived wherever we find it. That is not an endless rabbit hole. Like right now, we have a culture of being told that our culture started at best maybe 2,000 years ago, maybe 5,000 years ago in Egypt, in a small region. That's what we're willing to accept, because that's all we've been told. Have anybody ever told you that your ancestors did not come from Africa? They came to Africa and they were already royals before they came to Africa. Did anybody tell you that there was no such thing as you learning agriculture over trillions of years, or I'm sorry, the last 200,000 years, that it was actually given to you and it was an upgraded information? Has anyone ever told you that? For instance, in the Bambara tradition, for all of you native Africans, tell me, where did you learn agriculture from? Your ancient stories and oral tradition says that something came down from the heavens and struck the earth with its tool and showed you how to create and do and maintain agriculture. At the end of the day, what I'm saying to you is hard to accept, because white people done told you, well, it started with agriculture and people did this and people did that. This is all their theory. And we have to keep that in mind. And maybe you can even say, when I tell you, well, this is my position on something, that is my opinion, right? But one thing's for damn sure, when I tell you there's no evidence for said thing and I name thing, we can conclude that this is not something we need to keep on believing in, when everyone is telling us this is just a theory, and that shit literally moves every year. Every year, people add to that theory and change that shit and debunk that shit all over the case, because it's just a theory. What I'm saying is, and I'll go even further back to what you were saying about written versus oral culture. Oral culture is just as important as written culture. And there are some cultures to which they have a culture of preserving their oral traditions. And their oral traditions tell them where their origins from. And 99% of them, maybe there's 1% that don't, but 99% of origins on this planet and oral traditions say that they do not come from this planet. They come from someplace else off planet. Like, they're not from the original lands that they're in currently, and they're not even from this planet in terms of their genetics. It starts elsewhere. It came to this planet, upgraded, and it spread out, and everything was upgraded again over time. This is in the oral traditions. Now, I'm showing you in our oldest written tradition, it's still there. So this is not an endless rabbit hole. This is just a hole that don't have no light bulb in it, because I never stepped in that bitch. But now that I'm here, okay? Now that I'm here, we can put the lights on, okay? Put the lights on. We can have a party and shit, but this is what my intention is, Victor. To literally go in this rabbit hole, turn the light on, and show people it's not a rabbit hole. It's just a piece of information that we just have not been focusing on, because we've been believing people that just popped up on this planet after us, talking about, oh, well, the reason why the ancient Egyptians did what they did is because, well, they lived by the river. Never mind what they said in their ancient text. We're going to tell you they lived by the river, and this is why they were so smart, because they ate fish.
Let me say this. Let me say this. It's that damn microphone. We're gonna make an avatar with her in that microphone, man. We're gonna do it. You know what I mean? We gotta make an avatar with her in that microphone, man. We gotta do it. Emoticon something. But listen, from your argument, grassroots wise and even theoretically, we know that he who controls time and he who controls information literally is God in a sense, right? If not completely. Because if you control time, you can control information, you control everything. You know what I'm saying? Those are the two things that basically move and shifts people, society, culture, religion, economics, everything. Time and information. Everything that you do in your life is based on time and information. You know what I mean? I also throw love and hate into that too. That's a whole other argument for a different day. But theoretically, you know what I mean, it's through time and information. If you have time and information, those are the things that stick out more than ever. You know what I'm saying? And Rush should be back. He sent me a message. You know what I mean? Salute to Rush. Thank you for coming in, bro. You know what I mean? See you in a minute. But, you know what I mean? Time and information are things that essentially is what we ground everything on, including information that we get, including the things, including the ways that we move and the way that we do things and the way that we process things. You know what I mean? And I think that the time and the information that we've been given, right, based on our essence, based on where we come from, based on who we are, based on everything that has been given to us or shown to us, right? The argument and the reason why people have such a strong argument about it or even a strong case on it, just like Lola has, you know what I mean, is a simple fact is that we are given things in part, okay? We're not given the full totality of a story. And then when we start to put the pieces together to the puzzle, you know what I'm saying, that's when things get very, very, that's when the sauce get thick, right? You know what I mean? Because now it's getting thick because now we are garnering information, we're giving information that is speaking, to all the things that we've known and that we've been shown. You know what I'm saying? And that we are basically, basing everything everything that we believe on, right? Because here's the thing: if I'm telling you your whole life, right? I'm telling you your whole life that you have to wear a rain jacket, no matter what the weather is, right? It could be 90 degrees, right? If I tell you that you got to wear a rain jacket, or you will not be here anymore, you'll be deleted, right? And I've given you some sort of evidence of that, right? You know what I mean? Like you kind of seeing somebody just like basically not wear a rain jacket and like they ain't here no more. You're like, oh snap, this is true, this is real. And we're like, yeah, see, we told you, you don't wear that rain jacket, you ain't gonna be here. Now we know that in 90-degree weather, you ain't wearing no goddamn rain jacket, okay? We know what it is, okay? But if somebody has completely, manipulated your thoughts, your feelings, your actions to believe that you have to wear a rain jacket, in 90-degree weather, that is what you're gonna do. Same instance where some people use umbrellas, right, for the sun, because it's too bright for them, right? They have to use an actual umbrella or actual shading, right? Some people may think that, oh, why would they use shading? It's due to their skin, things of that nature, their chemistry, their makeup, everything else, right? So they have to have a certain amount of shading because the sun is too hot for them, right? So, it's all these things, and I just use as an example, but all these things are real. You know what I mean? So in a sense, a lot of us are wearing rain jackets in our mind, in our thoughts and in our actions, based on how we move, based on what we believe, where we come from. We're believing something, right? And we are not even actually sure of it. We're told that this is real, right? But where's the evidence of these things actually being concrete and actually having credence and actually meaning something, beyond what we're just told? Where's the evidence of these things? And I think that's what Lola is talking about. That's what she's speaking to. She's giving you actual evidence and facts about our creation, where we come from, and how we are all not the same. But yeah.
But just to double back on like evidence, right? Because that's why I said if y'all had the time for me to go into the West African evidence, I would go into it and I would try to, I guess, be brief with it, just to kind of show you that there is the connection between Africa and Mesopotamia is too strong to ignore. But the fundamental question remains: did we go to Mesopotamia or did Mesopotamia come to us? Right? And the issue is this: well, if we came from Africa, right, into Mesopotamia, what that means is our African DNA, our culture, before we went to Mesopotamia, right, we were primitive. And when we went to Mesopotamia, I guess when we met white folk, I guess that's when we upgraded. And it's like that's not what happened here. We were upgraded in Mesopotamia, and we were upgraded when we occupied Africa. We were not ancient man or like some subsidiary type of human being, and then went into that. And there's evidence to show that, because we're talking about the same people moving from that culture in Mesopotamia to different parts of Africa versus the current model of Southeast Africans coming up through the Nile and then going over into Mesopotamia. It's like those records, like it just doesn't make any sense. Like it's okay. Like we have to like go through some of this. But if y'all have time, I'll be brief.
Real quick. The brother Rush, I think he was addressing it earlier, right? Mm-hmm. And I try to stay off of it because then you have to go too deep into it.
However, from the conversation.
However, he was addressing the north and the southern kingdoms of Israel. Mm-hmm. And if you understand the history of Israel and their walls, the impenetrable walls, that there was no civilization who had technology that could break the walls or penetrate their fortress. They were supposed to be the chosen people. They were the ones that had the hand of God on their side inside of war. However, during that conquering of the Roman Empire, where those people were spread upon the four corners of the earth, which is why a lot of people have the concept that the earth is flat when it refers to corners. Those kingdoms were essentially scattered, and the southern kingdom that he spoke of the more melaninated tribes, they fled south to explain that migration that you speak of, as opposed to being northward to being a southern migration. And no. if they were fleeing to hide, no, they would be hiding amongst people who look like them.
Well, okay, let me say this. As Mr. Best said earlier, he who controls time is God, right? If somebody is trying to convince you that story that you just named, right, is about a small group of people, right, that obviously you can't even pinpoint who they is because they're so small, and the place that they occupy is smaller than New Jersey, okay? And this happened less than 4,000 years ago. This event that you're talking about, they can control how you perceive those people they quote unquote say they mixed with, and the event itself, because they're controlling the time frame that you think it happened in. Here's the issue with what you're saying. What I'm talking about goes back beyond the first ice age, and we've had several ice ages, okay? You're talking about what happened a couple hundred years ago. We're on two different levels of time right now. And this is what I'm saying. I'm not negating what happened within the last 4,000 or 5,000 years. That's cool. But the last 4,000 years equates to maybe 16 seconds in the time frame that we're really talking about right now. So again, you guys are taking pieces of a story, right, that correlates to what you think you know and saying, oh, that fits there, 1600 BC, when in reality, the culture that is telling you when this happened is talking about something that happened prior to 200,000 years ago. But you're telling me that because someone is telling you what time frame it happened, that you're gonna take these people's culture and say they can't be telling the truth. Because what I understand in terms of time for what, you know, white people told me, didn't show me, now I'm gonna say, well, that gotta be this. No, that's not what happened. Why? Because they're controlling your sense of time. And again, I wasn't nowhere except for what happened in 82 up until now. I'm not saying that I am a firsthand like eyewitness to anything that happened in the last 5,000 years. However,
so where do you derive your faith from?
But listen, these records are telling you that it's speaking about something prior to 200,000 years ago. And you can't sit and tell them they're lying because the people that you trust is talking about 5,000 years ago.
You're basing that off of documents, correct? Are you basing that off of documents?
Everything is
that you ain't talked to nobody.
Everything is based on documents. Every single thing we're talking about.
So think about what you're saying, right? Think about the reality. That's what I'm saying. It's just common sense. It ain't even a matter of do you believe in the Bible or you don't. It's common sense. What document can physically survive those kinds of catastrophic events, and while existing, unless they're divine documents, how can they exist for that amount of time that you're talking about, where in 2020 whatever, when you come across this knowledge that it's still untainted, untouched, and in a manner that you can interpret and understand it to the point where you feel any sense of confidence in it. If it's 200,000 years old, where is these 200,000-year-old documents?
No. You're not listening closely. These documents are written in stone, not on parchment that can be erased and shit like that. These documents, and that's why I reference the museums that you can go see them in. They're written on stone. If you don't understand how long stone can last in the universe, it's not a biological thing. If you don't know how long stone can last, you have to actually look that up so that it won't be just something I'm telling you. However, these documents that I'm talking about, right? That some of them that I'm referring to wasn't written 400,000 years ago. These were written longer than 20,000 years ago, according to the document itself, about a history prior to it. Now, mind you, I'm not comparing these documents to the Bible, nor am I talking about anything divine in terms of like the Christian paradigm and understanding of the word divine. I don't even think that word divine has any place here. In terms of, well, how did the document survive? It's like, listen, however it survived a natural way. We're not talking about anything, no woo-woo shit here. That's not what happens. That's not what we're referring to. And so what I'm saying to you is this. If the Mesopotamian culture existed before the Bible, before the first prophet in the Bible that could possibly write anything, okay? If these documents were already here, right? You cannot come to me and tell me that these documents don't hold some credibility equal to, if not over, than your Bible. You cannot, but then tell me about logic. You can't do that. If the Bible, but wait a minute, if the Bible itself almost word for word copies, and I don't mean copy as in plagiarize, but copies the Sumerian text almost word for word, and we know the Sumerian text existed before the Bible. Why in the world are we using the term logic when we say, well, are we going to take the Bible or are we going to take these texts, and how long was these texts written, and we don't know. Meanwhile, all of the contention in the Christian community for the last 2,000 years has been the legitimacy of these written texts that have been easily changed with the stroke of a pen. Like, we're not going to have that logical conversation here when I'm telling you, and you can go look for yourself, how old these stone documents are and what they're talking about, and how it literally fits 100% into our genetic makeup. It fits inside of the geological timeline on the planet. It fits inside of and these documents also record the last flood also before the Bible was written. So let's not sit here and act like we're in competition with the Bible. Again, the Bible gives you snippets of stories, but it's up to you to go back to the cultures that it's referencing and say, what did that culture record of that event? What did this culture record of this event? What happened there? Because the Bible is not telling you every single thing, not because, in my opinion, it's trying to hide anything from you, but rather it can't tell you everything. It's a fucking book. So you have to go look for these things on your own. And my thing is this, there's a portion of our conversation, right, when it comes to history that we can talk about in terms of what was written down. But there is a portion of our history that we have to intuit for our own selves and say, based on what's written down, based on what we know,